Okay. Hello, people. Um, yeah, this is not a live stream because I do not have a lot of subscribers. Um, Mostly because I really don't put myself out there like that. I really don't care to have bunches of people and connections and whatnot, mostly because my life has been pretty transient. Most people I know I knew them because they were just randomly out of town for whatever reason. And I don't necessarily want to be long term buddies, contract friends with the people like that. So, anyway, the few people that I am friendly with, most of them really, really don't understand where the hell I'm at with this whole thing right now because most people think, oh, you love Donald Trump and that's why, you're saying all this stuff and they think that I'm wrong politically. No, I don't love Donald Trump. When he first got into office, I thought he was a big ass buffoon. Actually, not even into office. When he started running, I thought he was a big ass buffoon. I had been living in Vegas and I had been seeing bunches of arrogant, dumb, rich white boys everywhere. And I really just thought he was another one of those dumb, arrogant, rich white boys. Especially when the grab him by the pussy thing came out, I was just grossed the fuck out. Anyway, time played on, and you start to realize that their whole thing was so very, very negatively against him. I started to question why it was negative. Then, more so before that answer became clear, I started um, having a lot of time on my hands. So, things that I had been passively interested in, which is a whole lot of political questions of like why, who did it, and how did this thing happen, and blah 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 blah. And that's many subject matters, whether they be deaths or um, bills that got passed that people were wondering how the hell did that bill get passed is just crazy. Anyway, so all of this stuff with that time became something that I could research. So, as I started researching all of these different things, which I believed were random interests having nothing to do with any current political cycle, I came to find out that everything is being reconciled legally, politically, administratively, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, all of this stuff is being reconciled. And so I started realizing that Donald Trump was doing the right thing. Whereas everybody's been pissed off that all these people have not been effective and they've made promises and then they weren't doing it. So, anyway, he was just doing the right thing. And then, because of different reasons that I had, I started searching through law. And as I was searching through law, I started seeing that there was a whole lot of stuff that just simply did not apply to me. And then I realized all this stuff, it wasn't just to me, it didn't apply. It didn't apply to absolutely anyone who has a properly issued passport. When I say properly issued, first of all, your passport is issued by the United States. So their very first question, almost, other than your name and where you live, is are you a US citizen? Most people do not know that the definition of US citizen is worker, slave, employee of the United States. So you are a worker if you know that you're a worker. You're a slave and an employee if you don't know that you're if you are not properly classified through your passport. You inadvertently fall into a category that people do not even realize exists as a slave. That is, if they have picked you up off the street and put you in storage or told you that you have to come to a meeting, which is court. So you're a slave at that point. You are an employee if you just get your butt up and go to work every day and you are contributing to the system. Contributing to the system is them taking taxes from you, because before you ever get your paycheck and think that you have to write a check for taxes, they have already taken from you everything. So people at the beginnings of the years, at the end of these Januaries or these Marches, or in the middle of the March, are submitting paychecks, or not paychecks, let me stop that. They're submitting personal checks towards the IRS, unaware that the IRS has taken absolutely everything before it ever came to you. The only people that need to actually write them checks are the people who own the businesses. Now, okay, so the rest of everybody else, you haven't accounted for your money. Like wherever you placed your money, you're supposed to say, hey, I put money over there. Here's the receipts for all the money that I put over there. That's called the 1099. It might be the Schedule K. It might be Schedule C. Something else. I'm not certain exactly. Don't make me lie to you, because I realize that I am exempt according to the treaty, the tax treaties. I am exempt from any and all taxes because I happen to be from Egypt. Yes, the United States told me that themselves through the documentation that I had to research. All of this is research. So anyway, so you're an alien if you don't have a passport that has been properly attained. And properly attained, I mean, did you read all of the instructions and the section of the USC that relates to passport and immigration? Okay, so that right there would tell you that you're probably not properly identified if you don't work for the government, meaning they give you a paycheck on a bi-weekly or monthly basis, identifying you clearly as a worker. Okay, so therefore you end up being a random ass employee, a slave, somebody that got trapped into the system inadvertently and you don't know how and why. Okay, so the way that you got trapped was through the birth certificate contract. When you were born, the hospital automatically gave to your parents the handprint and the footprint paper of identification. That is your record of live birth. Some of you may have it still, some of you may not. I don't have mine, and mine for my child was stolen. So we operate through birth certificates because we never knew not to. You're supposed to use the hand and footprint to properly identify you forever through time and life. Now, like I said, a lot of us don't have it. So the birth certificate itself is a contract, and it is receipt of a contract, and it is a redemption voucher, so to speak, maybe claim ticket. All right, so that is what the certificate of your birth is, okay? As is your car, but that's a different other certificate. I haven't explored that yet. I don't care. Just so, but they all must be claimed. Anything that is a certificate must be claimed. People are thinking that, oh, no, I just don't use that thing anymore. It is the thing that you absolutely need to use, because if you don't use it, they, meaning the de facto government, will use it. They are using it. They are making money on you every single day. Okay, so that gets discussed. Oh, I believe it's in corporation. And if it's not in corporation, it definitely is in banks and finance. Banks and finance or corporation, okay? So that's a really, really, really crappy thing. Now, if you're white, most of the stuff that I'm saying won't, on a technicality basis, apply to you. And that is not because I'm being racist. It is because I am Egyptian and you are something else. Okay? Now, I could probably be speaking for Nubians, because Egypt and Nubia, I think, somehow are tied hand in hand here. I think that in this continent that is Egypt. I believe that the Nubians somehow are natural inhabitants here as well. I don't know exactly how that all goes to play into everything. Somebody's going to say, oh, it's because we're Moors. Yeah, all that Moor word means is we are dark bodied, we have dark skin. Okay, so it doesn't tell you from where your dark skin came. Yeah, it came from the beginning of time and all this other stuff, the Moabites and the Israelites and the Canaanites and all the other stuff. Okay, geographically, where is any one of those people located? Okay, because historically, they're not telling us the geographical locations. All right, so please stop that, because that's not going to help you if you're just saying, oh, I'm a dark body, because those Africans don't belong over here either. And they are also allies of the United States, which is an invasive entity on our property. Okay? Now, people are going to say, oh, it's about the Treaty of Morocco and this and this and that. It doesn't matter, because the United States was a negative force over there. Because they had captured that area over there held all of the offices for this area over here. This area over here wasn't doing business, because the business was being conducted from that area, and this area over here was just like, all right, well, we'll participate with that and we'll make sure that you get what you needed. That's all that this area was doing, because it had long since been conquered by the Romans. Okay? Now, in some manner, it was protected in that conquering, because otherwise we would have no recourse right of action right now. So somehow that was protection. But anyway, whatever happened over there in Morocco happened with these fucking Middle Eastern Arabs and those damn Chinese, Persians. Don't get me started on telling you how those wars played out. I would not be accurate. I'm not going to lie. Okay, so because of all of that, which happened after the Caesars conquer of this area, whatever happened then, they started spreading Christianity, because Caesar wasn't spreading Christianity. So these Muslims started forcing Christianity on anybody that they had declared was not them. Now, these Muslims, if you follow everything back through history, they are already conquered by some Persian shit, because it was Persian before they started calling it Asian. They're calling it Asian so that they can take the place of Asiatics, who were the natural inhabitants of the world. When it was created for a certain type of people. Those people were the Asiatics. Okay, so now you got this whole invasive species that came from something else, not of this world, and is calling itself Asian. Now, those people that are from that geographical location historically were called Manchurian man. So they are trying to basically overtake all of that. Now, they haven't been successful just yet, because we're discovering that, hey, those people over there originally were dark. Now, I'm not saying that that's a discovery of any newness or anything. I'm just saying that for us people over here in America, I think that we were under the impression that all of those people were yellow skinned with slanted eyes. Okay, that is an invasive species. Those things those people long ago were overtaken by something. Don't get me to lying. I didn't used to be racist, and I think that I am becoming extremely fucking racist and real fucked up. Now, I've said that in my own confession, so understand I'm really not trying to be that way, but the more and more that I am learning, I am understanding that some of those damn things do not um, function the way that we function. Literally, our body chemical makeup, the structure of it is not necessarily the same as some of those other things. And that could be with anything. That could be with anything. Don't believe that all these black ones are black, and don't believe all these white ones are white. Don't believe all these Mexicans are Mexicans. Or in any other way that you want to label people. Don't believe the hype. Okay, so getting back to this whole damn thing. You're not properly identified until you have a passport. All right, so I said it comes back to your taxes and all the other shit. Okay, the way that you get a passport that properly identifies you, most people do not know, we're going back to the IRS now, that the Social Security number, which is distributed by the IRS, as are all numbers, identifying numbers, that Social Security number is never supposed to have been distributed towards these people right here. Never was it supposed to be distributed towards any of these people right here. Because we were, all right, let me say this. The ones who were the natural inhabitants of this land should never have received them. Now, they brought a whole bunch of people in from Africa, from Akibulan, okay? They're calling them Africans because of some general Africanist, some Roman dude who decided, hey, I've conquered this area. Okay. So, and that was still Africa, and this was still Egypt. They started doing that more recently after Rome's conquer, because this area, like I said, still lived by the laws and the rules, and we were still safe and protected. Now, okay, so that number expires. It was only supposed to have been good until your 21st birthday. Your 21st birthday and maybe 6 months or something. Yeah, 21st birthday plus 6 months. You were supposed to be able to disregard that number. Remember that word, disregard. You were supposed to have been able to disregard that number. In disregarding that number, you, in order to disregard that number, you have to have claimed a sole proprietor number from the IRS, because we're still at the IRS. So you get that number, and that number now says, I'm no longer dependent upon the system or the government to make sure that I'm okay. I am an adult. I actually don't even say that word. I am a responsible person for myself. I can think clearly and I can act of my own volition. Now, people think that that comes literally with a number. Nope. Doesn't come with a number. Not because you're 18. It's not because you're 21. It's not because you're this. It's simply because the laws say they cannot give the thing that they hold in trust to a person who has not had enough time to acquire some sort of knowledge. Now, there is so much testing and whatnot, and what do you call it? Verification for who you are, that in learning how to fill out the forms, you are going to acquire the knowledge no matter what. Now, the problem being is, are you going to be one of those people who has just been angry because you've been inside of the system for so long and so many things have happened to you and you're so angry? Are you going to be one of those people that is confused and conflicted about what really happens and goes on? And hopefully we're thinking that you're not. But at that point, people are still chaotic and they think that they have to gain some sort of revenge or seek some sort of revenge or whatnot, blah, blah, blah. And then they have these people who are really stupid and they think, oh, well, I want to line up with Obama because he's black. Well, what you don't know is he looks dark-skinned. But his entire idealism is all about the United States. This is the same entity that in the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952, in their definitions inside of like the first 4 to 6 pages, tells you clearly that they are of world totalitarianism and communism. So if they believe in totalitarianism and world communism, where is that going to put you? What is that going to do to other people? So no, they can't allow you to cause harm, which they really, really shouldn't allow you to cause harm. And I say all these things because this is our system. Long before we lost knowledge of this system, this was designed for us and by us, was perfected by us. That's the reason why they are still hundreds of years later trying to figure out how to dismantle it. They cannot dismantle it without your knowledge and permission, your acquiescence. And a lot of people right now have no knowledge and they're giving permission through acquiescence. So basically, you're allowing yourselves to be shanghaied and railroaded because you're just like, oh, well, I need recognition and somebody to tell me that I'm special and all this other stuff. And we can't really be special until we have a title and a fancy suit and they put us on television. No, you are special because you are here on this earth and you probably came from people and you probably have delivered people into the earth. So you were born and you have beget other lives. Okay. That right there makes you special. That's the end of the specialness. Anything else that anybody else has done beyond that, kudos to them. That's it. Now, what makes you not special is when you decide that you are going to be a part of some lawless system and inflict horrible uglinesses upon people because you are too ignorant to have learned all of the rules. Now, I say this because I got a neighbor who probably will never ever see this. But I really don't like him. He's kind of condescending and all this other stuff. And he thinks that he's special. So, but the thing is, he signed a 501c3 agreement. He didn't read all the rules. He didn't understand that 501c3 agreements, they aren't letting you out of any categories. You're just simply saying, hey, I'm signing the contract to be one with the United States. Whatever y'all say is all good with me. I'm just going to go right along with you and I'm going to uphold everything that you said. Now, what his stupid ass didn't know is the United States is of world totalitarianism, and the origin of him, they want to murder out of existence. All that dark skin that he's got, they want to kill it out of existence. And he has signed paperwork, and I think it goes on, I'm not sure if it's 10 years or if it's 20 years, and I think it's 20 years, that they're giving you protection. Now, what they're not saying is, you still have to comply with all of their little laws and stuff. They're giving you a break on the money aspect, but that's because you stupidly believe that you're a U.S. citizen and you have to pay taxes. So all you did was sign into stupidity with signing a 501c3 agreement. When you don't sign the 501c3 agreement and you are properly identified through your passport, and then you go ahead and read all of the information, all of it, what it does is it says, because you're saying that you don't belong to the United States as a slave, an employee, or a worker, and you're not one of its affiliates, you're not in cahoots with it, you're not pledged an allegiance to it. Because of that, you get to be protected by the treaties of your nation. So my nation is Egypt, and it says that I am not beholden to any damn thing that these United States people are asking for. Nothing. I don't have to go to court. I don't have to fucking pay them. I can walk into a fucking store without one of those goddamn masks. I can stand there, not be intimidated. And I just went through this shit about 5 minutes ago, or about 5 minutes before I walked in the door. Not be intimidated by these motherfuckers. Tell them I invite you to call the police, because the police are going to show up. They're going to run your damn passport, and they're going to be like, oh shit, we ain't really got nothing to do with this. And then they're going to talk to you because they're going to hope that you don't know what the fuck your rights are. And they're going to ask you to be compliant. They're going to ask you to leave. They're going to ask you to do all this stuff. And then you're going to stand in your power and you're going to say, I've been properly identified. I am a natural inhabitant here on this land. You can't ask me to do a goddamn thing that I do not voluntarily choose to do. No more can they do that. Then they can say, oh, then the store will pop up and say, oh, okay, well, guess what? We got a right to refuse service to you. No. You don't have a right to refuse service to me, motherfucker, because you work for the fucking United States, which I have allowed to be on my goddamn land. You can't tell me that I can't go anywhere in this fucking land. This company is public. It is rendering a public service. You can't deny my natural inhabitant ass a motherfucking thing. I can walk all up and through this motherfucker. You can refuse to sell to me, upon which I will say that you are refusing to accept the legal tender which you are being offered, which then will allow me to simply take what I have gathered through your stores, because you don't have a right to refuse me a fucking thing. Now, this is what all you damn mask acquiescers don't know while you are allowing them to ruin your respiratory. All right, and I started out all this because, yes, I was angry about that damn thing, but more so because I'm really, really more irritated that people are being taken advantage of, all because, for real, they don't have proper identification. The passport simply is proper identification. That's it. That's all it is. Now, this guy put out a book, Chained to the Sky. I cannot remember the author. Now, I hate the format which it was written because it's giant letters. It's too much for my eyes. I need the fucking print, the font to be much smaller so that I can see a whole sentence at a time. I'm literally looking at like 10, 12 words at a time, and I'm like, oh shit, this is killing my eyes. And by the time you got to flip the page fucking 20 times, you don't know what the fuck the sentence was. Anyway, but I understand that that's just marketing and whatnot, and he had to do that in order to fucking put it into a book that he could sell. Otherwise, it would have been a damn pamphlet. Anyway, and that's seriously because there's not that much information for you to need to learn. It's just people refuse to go and get the source. So all he did was grab the source, pull out a bunch of notes of it, and by the time you finish all the notes, you're like, oh, this is just a tiny little section of stuff. That's not really enough for a book, but I'm glad he got a great book deal out of it. Because honestly, he has highlighted so many damn things that so many people really, really need to know. Please buy his book, because it's going to help all those lazy people out there who don't want to read the information. And you still need to be protected. Just because you're lazy should make you be persecuted by prosecution. Okay, so that cancels out anybody's ability to say I'm broke and I don't have money. Did you hear me? The book, Chained to the Sky, cancels out anyone's ability to say I'm broke and do not have money. He has laid out all of the UCC requirements and options for you. Any way to cancel out a debt, he has given. Now, the only other way that you can have to cancel out debt is to finish all of the process that says that you are the beneficial owner of your entity, cancel out that damn entity, kill it, put it into a trust that turns into the estate, which is also in the IRS. So once you do that, then you become your foreign entity. You are correctly placed in your foreign entity. Now, you do have to do all of the paperwork that goes along with it. You do have to acquire the accounts that come along with it. In order to acquire the account, you must acquire the information that is already in use as a business entity for yourself. So, do you hear me? The government, the de facto government, is using you as insurance for the government. You and your taxes, your paycheck, your energies that you expend every day in an unhappy manner, and the ones that you can steal for yourselves in a happy manner, are all being used, and they are sucking you dry. They are allowed to take up to 80% of your incomes. That's some really, really scary stuff. But that part is told to you through, and I have put a stack of paper away somewhere. That part comes to you in, I want to say, it's in Title 26. Title 26 is, no, Title 28 is Internal Revenue Code. I can't see a damn thing. No, Title 26 is Internal Revenue Code. And yeah, it tells you what kind of taxes are being imposed and upon who will they get imposed and all the other stuff. But it also will tell you how you become exempt of all of that, blah, blah, blah. Then, 28 actually tells you how you become exempt of all of that. That is the judiciary and judicial procedures. Now, the section really isn't all of, it's not as big as one would think, but it does look extremely big until you start realizing that most of the sections look like that. They look like this. Like this page obviously has gone over to the next couple of pages, but only a little part of it really applies to you. Not all of it will apply to you. So, and this is the local rules of civil procedure. Now, I don't even know if that's reading out properly for you. Let me see if I can flip this a little bit. No, I cannot. Anyway, so that's just one of them, right? And that's for your local stuff. Now, I pulled this from the Arizona state statutes. That's how I got this. At Administrative Code, Arizona Administrative Code, or Arizona state statutes. Revised state statutes. Revised statutes. Revised statutes. Okay, this is the federal version. Same darn thing. It's federal. You have to read both of them. And then again, there's not a whole lot of information. See how I've got these highlights in there? These highlights are the things that apply to me. And yeah, I did have to read all of it in order to figure out which ones applied and which ones didn't apply. But once you start going through it, and you see I've got highlights all the way through the back. Because literally I've read every line of this. And I'm so excited. I got an invitation to the meeting hall, which is the courthouse. But I'm so excited because now that I've read this, I'm simply going to walk in there and I'm going to tell them how none of this shit applies to me. And when they know that I know the rules, I also know how to hem they asses the fuck up. Because everything that they're doing is illegal. And what they are doing is they are presenting a claim against you. They are your adversary. And all you have to do is reverse the process, which makes them the adverse. And then they ass is in trouble because they brought some bullshit up on you. None of this shit applies at all under any circumstances. Anyone that comes through the court system and attempts to apply a case toward any individual, if that individual is in their proper standing, proprio persona, you have to know who your nationality is. You have to know who your treaty, your tax treaty protectors are. Protectors are. You have to know which tax treaties apply to you. Yes, there are lots of people out there that are saying, I'm a Moor and the Moroccan treaty applies to me. Okay, I'm really, really sorry that you did not hear that in the last, I think it's in the last 2 months. I think it's the last month, maybe. Maybe it might be 2. That treaty is no longer in what do they call it? It's no longer standing. It's no longer in standing. Now they've got a treaty for Egypt and they've got a treaty for Israel. Those are the 2 treaties that one must now refer to, because that Moroccan treaty was lending some sort of protection to Egypt and Israel, which again is no longer, because that Morocco thing was headed up by the Saudis. The Saudis or the fucking Asians, the fucking Persians that had fucking come in and fucking claimed that land a long time ago. So because they got rid of the fucking Saudi family and they fucking killed everybody except for one of those fucking princes, they put everybody else to death. Everybody. So the one prince who was like, oh, y'all were all lawless. He was like, he was trying to get them all out. He was safe enough. He remained safe until they got rid of all of them. Now he's over there going, hey, we're going to make our women safe again. I don't want nobody running through the land and raping and killing women just because they're women. Anyway, so now that treaty that people want to keep clinging to is no longer valid. Yes, there is something going on with the whole Morocco thing. I really, honestly, I'm not going to tell you that I have stayed abreast of that information. I have not. If someone else has and they want to share, I would love to hear. I'm never going to not acknowledge information. I will disseminate whether or not it is accurate or not later on. But that's just me. But this right here, like I said, I'm so happy I've gotten an invitation to the meeting hall. I don't know what to do. So I have been sitting around figuring out exactly what they could take from me if I didn't have protection. And I have figured out exactly, let me find it. Oh. I was in the process of printing this particular piece of information. See where it says, let me see, consent, dividends. And I know that that's not coming through very clear for you. And I'm really sorry, but I am doing this from my telephone. Anyway, so that section right there, and it does come out of Title 26, and it is inside of the area that precedes Part 1. It's going to precede Part 1 or Subchapter H. So, G. So I'm going to say it's in Subchapter G. Okay? I'm going to say it's in Subchapter G. But basically what it is consent stock. See that? And then up here it says non-resident aliens and foreign corporations. Okay, so because I've already read through a bunch of this stuff, I'm going to say that entire section that precedes this section, this is Section H, so that whole Section G is telling you how this crap will apply to you if you don't learn how it doesn't apply to you. So, Title 26, Subchapter G is extremely important. Extremely important. I'm still in the process. I had to run out and get printer ink. And I still got to go back out and get some because I got the wrong size ink. It doesn't fit. But I cussed out the people in Costco. So I got to fucking turn around and go to another store anyway. Because Costco didn't have what I wanted. Anyway, so I decided to make this video before I return to that craziness. I'm gonna go cuss somebody else out. I don't really want to. They just piss me off when they walk up and ask me to wear that damn thing. So anyway, these are the bits of information that a lot of people do not know is literally running our lives. And, oh, and it looks different because I printed from 2 different sources. I found the second source was a whole lot better, which is, I should tell you, it's the Government Accounting Office, the GAO, Government Accounting Office Publications or something. I don't know. Anyway, what I did was I put in US code.pdf. I put that in a Google search line. Actually, I don't use Google. I use DuckDuckGo. So I put that in the search line and it popped up. So you'll get a PDF from the .gov, one of the .gov websites. And it just is, it prints out like the old style 2-column books. And I guess it's a lot simpler than going through the other source where I was literally copying and pasting every page onto a Word document. Because if you just try to print it, it prints out in some really giant font. And you end up using 600 pages for something that really only takes 20. So, yeah, anyway, you need to get properly identified and you need to get properly classified with the IRS. Your very first thing you need to do is obtain a sole proprietorship. So that number is going to come out 2 digits dash 7 digits. It's the exact same as Social Security number. You get that number to say that I'm not that other person. So you never, ever again use a Social Security number until you fill out the form to disregard the entity. That's it. That's why you want to keep that number. That's the only reason why you want to keep that number, because you want to disregard it. Now, as you are disregarding that number, you need to apply it to a couple of pieces of paperwork. I'm not going to tell you which ones because I'm not really exactly sure. But that number really should never be used again for anything that you are going day to day through your life. Don't be afraid to apply the number because it is your number. It is not fraudulent on any circumstances because you went to the IRS, you applied for the number, they gave you the number. They know you have the number. The number is to be used for certain instances. It is to identify you properly in what category you need or required to be taxed within in order to be taxed properly. Otherwise, they're going to take 30% from you off the top, and then they're going to sneak everything else out from under the bottom as you don't know what's going on. Okay, so that's the first part. Oh, no, the sole proprietor. Okay, so that's the first part of the sole proprietor. There really are a few different parts to this sole proprietor thing, because now that you have told the IRS, you need to tell either the Treasury or the Internal Revenue in your state that you are using this sole proprietor. How long have you been a sole proprietor? I don't mean how long have you had a number. Are you recorded in your state to have been a business owner as a sole proprietor? You need to go ahead and tell them that you've been a sole proprietor operator for that long. Matter of fact, I haven't really read the rules, but I would check the rules to see if you could even put a date there that would allow you to acquire your 21st birthday, or 6 months after your 21st birthday. Okay. Now, because that is literally when you were able to become a sole proprietor. Unless you can prove that you were already left home while you were 18. I don't know how that works. Don't make me lie to you. Okay, so, but you need to check into that information. Okay, so you need to figure out when you can have claimed that. Now, because all of that time that you are legally allowed to claim as a sole proprietor, and now this is blanketing everyone, because like I said, I'm exempt from all rules and regulations and shit. All I got to do is come forward and be like, hey, this is me. Once they verify that, they have to give me all my shit, because none of these damn rules apply to me. All of this shit is done. But anyway, for any of you people who are not Egyptian, and I don't know what the Nubian rules are, so I can't tell you that either. So any of you people that are not Egyptian, you need to figure out what your tax treaties say. And you need to get current versions if you have older versions, because there are some of these countries that were being protected erroneously because they were part of the evildoers. They are no longer being given those protections. Those have been snatched up. Anyway, so you need to figure out what your tax treaty nation is. Now, I found my tax treaty nation because I authenticated my birth certificate, and then I used the systems, which I found the authentication information. I used those systems to research the number that came back on my authentication. I know I just left a gap of information. You're like, well, which one exactly is it? I already told you there are secrecy and banking laws. I'm trying to tell you everything that I can think of without violating these laws. Okay, so what else? Where do we go from there? Okay, so you need to get properly identified and properly, what is the next word for it? Verified. Identified first and then verified in the other systems. So in your state system, you have to make sure that they cannot pretend that you have not told them where your where your IRS information has placed you. You must transfer that information. If you don't transfer it, it doesn't benefit them to transfer it. So therefore, they're going to keep saying, well, we didn't know. We didn't have no information. You didn't tell us. We didn't know no better. They keep pretending that all of this information doesn't line up, but it does line up. Because if your ass gets pulled over by the police when you have a properly verifiable passport, they dumbasses will be like, and they'll try to contract you to see if you know any better. Now, I knew enough not to be contracted, but I didn't know enough to scare them. Now I scare the shit out of these motherfuckers. I'm having fun with that one. I am loving that one. Anyway, but I'm a bold, crazy ass bitch. I'm not telling anybody to go off and be bold and crazy like me. I'm not. But my life has met with a few different sets of circumstances where I'm just like, oh, really? This is really the deal? So if I had to choose between you and me, I'm choosing me all the time. So anyway, but that's just my life. So I'm choosing me all the time. And all of this information that I've been reading, and I want you to know I've been reading all kinds of it. All this information that I read, all this stuff, I print this stuff out and maybe I don't read it right away immediately, but I do come back and I read it later. All of this stuff. I read it later. I read everything because when I'm reading a section, I realize that section keeps referring me back to this other section. I'm like, shoot, I know I read that section, but now I need to know exactly for real how these two pieces of information line up together. Once you start putting those two pieces of information, the next section that you read is going to cover some of this information that you've already passed. And then you're going to put that information with these other two pieces of information. You're going to be like, oh, now I see how this comes together. And I can still see that big old gap that they didn't cover this other thing that's questioning my mind. So, all right. Because I've got all of this information, now I can theorize how this other stuff lines up. So as I'm going about my information now I'm starting to pull forms. Now, I don't try to send these forms in. I just pull the forms. And as I'm pulling the forms, I'm filling the forms out. I save them, the physical paper, so I can cross off stuff, but I also have a copy of them in my system. So I just pull up my Adobe, I pull up the form, and any changes that I've made on the paper, I put those changes into the electronic, and it gets saved all over again. So now it's saved in the system, and all I got to do is keep reading. And then when I come back, I fill out another form, and then I keep reading. I line up the information, I fill out another form. I have to sometimes every now and then go back and cross off some stuff. Just check it all off, write it all out, because I realize new information tells me, oh, that one don't apply to you because of this little piece of section right here. And sometimes I have to go back and be like, oh, that does apply to you because of this little section right here. And I'm like, oh, this applies to me. But if you keep reading, you'll find another caveat where it says, yeah, well, it did apply to you if this and this and that, but that one didn't happen because blah, 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 this and that and that. So now this one doesn't apply to you, but it shifted you over to this other category. Sometimes you go right back to the same category that you just left. And that's fine too. That's fine too. But you're moving forward. You're just applying new information and moving forward. No matter what, at the end of this process, you are going to be 500 times smarter than you were when you sat down with us. Because you didn't know how the world functioned. You didn't know how the world worked. All you thought is, oh, I got to get up and I got to go to work and I got to give them my greenbacks. Well, guess what? I don't have to get up and go to work. I don't have to give them no greenbacks. I really don't have to do anything but know who I am, which I really, really love. But some people don't fall into that category. Now, you don't fall into that category only because you come from a different land and it was conquered in a different way, or it was preserved in a different way. Its laws and rules don't apply to me the way they apply to you, because my laws and rules that come from my nation predated whatever was going on with mankind's laws, because these literally are the Creator's laws. My nation respects the Creator's law. Now, every nation doesn't do that. A lot of nations just said, well, no. It's between us men to work it out. And it's like, oh, okay, well, y'all work that shit out. Men have fallacies. If you don't know it, think about yourself. You're not perfect. Your kids don't think you perfect. Your parents don't think you perfect. You don't think your parents are perfect. And I'm talking about the people that really, really have that huge love for one another. I'm not talking about families that are all separated and have animosities. I'm talking about the most loving of families are looking at their people and they're saying, you are not perfect. Now, remember all of that. Because as you are accepting that they're not perfect and you're not perfect, then you have to come back to this law shit and you have to say, okay, yeah. So these men who have decided what the laws will be, they were not perfect either. And beyond, far, far beyond it, because they were competing with everybody else thinking there's a hierarchy system. And a hierarchy system says, I'm better than you. I'm smarter than you. I'm bigger than you. I'm more than you. That's some craziness. I'm not better than anyone. And no one standing next to me, standing or across from me, standing behind me is better than me. No one. I don't give a damn how many millions they have. I don't give a fuck if you got some billions. I have refused both. Yeah, for real. So, and that's not because I thought I was better than them. I just thought that they were presenting an option that was less than desirable for me. My ideal was so much greater than their presentation. I believed in that ideal. Now, that's not because I had better. That's simply because I know that there is a peace that does not attach conditions to the way that I will be loved or cared for. And that's it. I'm not special. I just have idealism that wasn't being met. I think a lot of people have idealism and they think that they got to compromise. I just don't believe in compromise. Not on my idealism, not on the way I am going to spend my life and my heart and my days energy. I just don't want to do that with something that I don't think is going to give back to me in a whole, full, loving way that I want to be loved. Some people don't give a fuck. They just want somebody to stand next to them and they don't care how badly they treat it. Okay, I'm just not that person. So I have refused situations many times over that a lot of people would have jumped at. Anyway, and that's just because my idealism is better. Now, I didn't know that all these years later, I was going to read this information and find out, oh my God, no matter what they were offering me, oh my God, my nation worked it out millennia ago that whatever was being offered was never going to be what my creator is offering. Now, I don't know how I knew that, but that was divine. Anyway, proper classification comes through your passport. It comes through you telling all of the systems that they need to be correctly lined up. Now, I am foreign. I am foreign because I told the United States, I don't believe in your religion. I'm not one of you. And some other things. Matter of fact, I actually printed out a beautiful section of law which completely places me or tells me exactly how I don't have to participate in their systems. I printed it. It was here, and it's in one of these stacks, and I'm going to give it to you. Oh, okay. All right, so, okay. Title 26, subsection 3121. Yes, there's a chapter number in there. I didn't get that part recorded, okay? So I'm not going to tell you that, but it's Title 26, subsection 3121. It is the definitions. Now, I love the definition section of all of these things because the definitions give you the nitty gritty. They don't just tell you the definition of the word. It tells you how the word is to be conveyed in this subsection or this chapter. The subsection is the definition, is the whole section of definitions. And it tells you how this chapter, how these words are applied to this particular chapter. Because in the next chapter, they may be different. So it is definitely section by section. Definitely section by section. And you need to remember which point of view they're speaking from, because sometimes they're speaking from the United States and sometimes they are speaking as they're never not the United States, but they will present a different aspect and you won't know which body you are, because you will be a bank when they're talking sometimes. You will be a corporation sometimes. Sometimes they're talking about the bank and the corporation in the same paragraph. So you need to know what your place is in both scenarios. Sometimes it applies to you, sometimes it doesn't apply to you. You need to know which type of corporations could possibly apply to you and which ones completely are not you. It just couldn't be possible to confuse you with it. The next thing is, so there's so many different ways. And then, like I said, citizen, worker, employee. Sometimes you're an employee, sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're the natural inhabitant. They will say natural person, but they only say natural person like, I think I've run across it maybe 3 times in this entire reading, but they keep saying person, 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 person. Sometimes they mean natural person. Most times they do not. Sometimes they actually say natural person. Most times they will not. Okay. You're going to be insurance. You are insurance. You need to know which insurances you are. You need to know if you're federal or municipal. I am neither. It's not possible for me to be either. A lot of people will not know that, and they will fall into municipal and federal just because they don't know. Some people will be municipal and federal because you have past that you haven't reconciled. And literally that reconciliation is going to come from the UCC section. So, and I think the UCC section is inside of this 26. I can't remember. And I ran out of ink, and that's why I wasn't printing anymore. Anyway, so let me get back to this. You just need to know the definitions. The definitions are so extremely important. Once you take on a full comprehension of the definitions. I'm trying to stop using that word understanding. It's bad. So once you come into a full comprehension of the definitions, these readings become so extremely easy. You just need to know the terms and definitions. Now, as I've been doing all of this, a lot of it will revert back to an act. I don't know which one this is. I can't remember. It might be the Banking Act. It might be. Oh, this is the Federal Reserve Act. Okay. So this refers back to probably a few of these different sections, because the Federal Reserve is basically, they're saying, all right, well, we're making sure the federal part gets taken care of. They want to make sure that they always have money to run themselves. So they're going to make sure that they tell you about the other acts as well. Well, not this one. They're going to, the Federal Act goes into all of these different categories. Like I'm looking at IRS right here, Internal Revenue Code. I'm looking at territories and insular possessions. That's because the federal need to take over the territories and insular possessions in order for it to have money. Now, once it took over, then it's got to figure out how to account for and what to do with the money. So this one goes into every section in a way that you won't know until you read it. Anyway, that hurts. So, that's why that's important. Now, they also tell you that there's a few different departments that come together for this. But you need to know this. You can't do any of this without literally reading everything. No matter what you do, it's always going to bring you back to another piece of information. You can skip over it, and you are probably not going to be properly identified, or you were not going to find a caveat of information that is absolutely necessary. So when I started all this, I didn't know that I couldn't just fill out these forms that are saying, oh, these are the forms that you need to do this. But what happened was I realized that I needed to go back to the IRS and give them consent to work with the other entities, because they'll be like, no, we don't give out that information. But the other entity is your other name that is a trustee. So now you have to be the trustee, but you also have to be the beneficial owner, the name on the birth certificate. And you have to say the birth certificate name is giving the trustee permission to tell you to do this and release this information to the trustee, which is really, really kind of fucking stupid. But these are the blocks that they put in place so that somebody else couldn't get your information, because otherwise somebody could just grab your authentication, like any one of these random ass municipal people, or federal people, they could just grab your authentication because that is privileged to everyone. Everybody can file for your birth certificate. That's not privileged. That one with the hand and footprints, that was privileged. Anyway, so anyone can gather that birth certificate, get it authenticated, and then say, hey, look, I'm doing official business. And through all of that, they can utilize all these other little caveats of information. Now, like this thing right here, consent to disclose tax compliance check. So if you don't tell the IRS to disclose that, see what it says? Tax compliance. Remember I said that you've got to tell your state people what you've told the federal people? I have not run across this piece of paper until today. This is the very first time I even knew that this paper was in existence. Yes, I did see it in the list of forms. I did not know that it applied to me. Would not have ever thought it applied to me until I read the IR code, Internal Revenue Code. So there's a whole lot of information that you just have to read to know. But please start with getting your passport, and you can't even do that until you get your sole proprietorship from the IRS. And as you get the sole proprietorship, I want you to know you don't get it as a business. You get it as a household employer. Because you're saying, my house, my personal life needs to run business. I have personal bills that are applied to each body in my house that I have to be responsible for. I have monies and incomes. I have things that should not be taken from me. And I am standing up and I'm saying that all of these things are accounted for, and you must respect that. So, but you can't say that if you don't fill out this thing right here. I was wondering why my stuff wasn't getting answered, why it wasn't coming back, why I wasn't being released certain information, because I have been filling out forms, I have been mailing them out, and I have been standing around waiting. But the thing is, if I didn't keep reading and keep reading and keep reading, and I thought that, oh, I filled out the forms and that's it, I'm going to wait, I would have been angry. But I was like, no, I'm going to fill out that form and I'm going to keep moving because I need to keep moving through this information. Okay, so once you get properly identified through your passport, okay, this comes, and nobody knows that this is in existence. It's written in all of the forms and information, but I have run across taxpayer advocates that have absolutely refused to allow me to work with this form. I had to go and find some other people who I knew were going to be very, very interested in the information because they act as a unit. Unlike these, let me just say it, these little dark bodies seeking approval, trying to get down with the white man and trying to say, okay, I'm special and I'm better than everybody else and I'm doing what's supposed to be asked of me or what's been asked of me. Your compliance is allowing them to overtake the nation. Your compliance is allowing terrorism to be enacted on your dark ass people. So when you're standing around talking shit about dark people need to get their shit together, they can't get their shit together because you're an asshole. So that's for all of you people who say, oh, I got a good job and I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm not lawless and I comply with the law. You haven't complied with the law because you don't know who the hell you are. You're not tax treaty protected. And I know that you're not because they wouldn't have given you that fucking job if you were. If you knew who the fuck you were and you were standing in your power, they wouldn't want shit to do with you and they would be trying to pray that your ass didn't read all the information. Okay. Woo. Okay, so, all right. What else? Now, like I said, if